Welcome to Small Practice Support Information Session number 17. In this Law Society of Ireland recording, Paul Hajek talks to Justin Purcell about getting value out of technology and your website.
You're all very welcome to Small Practice Information Session 17, getting value out of technology and your website with Paul Hajek. So I'm delighted to have Paul. He's been a solicitor for over 37 years. He's based in Bristol. Is that correct, Paul? And you've been a solicitor for over 37 years. You've had various roles, various awards won, and I think it's safe to say you're at the vanguard of solicitors who see the importance of social media and have been for over 10 years. So we're delighted to have you on the show, and we hope you'll be able to share your experiences with us. So over to you, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's hopefully the next half hour I'll be able to at least galvanize or give you a few nuggets from someone who's been in the trenches doing it. So it's not prescriptive. There's so many ways of doing things, but I'll just give you an example of what I've done and how you might fit that in with your various practices. So a bit of background about myself, how I've used websites and content marketing to get a footprint on the internet, which has definitely brought us work. I'm going to say a bit about price transparency, which is something that we're having to deal with, but we've been dealing with for 12 years or so. It's something that I'm, quite strong about. And then what we actually use currently and what we're looking at. So how technology can fit in with a modern practice. Beauty of technology now is that it's much more affordable than it was 10, 15 years ago. So there's no excuse for not having the best cutting edge technology for your particular practices. So that's just a little bit of background from me. I qualified in 83, joined Clutton Cox 85, sole practitioner for most of my career, then became a limited company. Alternative business structures are part of the Legal Services Act that came in 2011, which effectively opens up the legal services market in England and Wales. It means that outside firms can own law firms. Huge threat at the time, everyone was worried about it, but essentially if you can't beat them, join them. So I became ABS 2 years ago, changed regulator from the SRA, which is the Solicitors Regulatory Authority, to the Council for Licensed Conveyancers. A slight subtle difference, the SRA, for us, it's, jackboots, kicking down doors if you haven't crossed a T on one of your particular files. The CLC are much more collaborative, and their stance is not what you shouldn't be doing, is tell us what you want to achieve and we'll see how we can get that for you. So it's been a huge change in emphasis and allows you to feel that you've actually got a regulator that is with you rather than the perhaps, and it's, I'm generalizing, but perhaps the first thing is that they don't tell you what you can't do rather than what you can do. And then this February, timing quite good with COVID and everything else, I took on an extra 2 owners. So there's 3 of us that own the business now. One is a solicitor of same 38 years like myself, and the other is a non-lawyer who runs law firm mergers and acquisitions, but being an ABS allowed me to bring that in. So my recent history, the internet was changing behaviors. We all know about it now. It's part of our everyday. But I just thought back in 2008, whenever it was, the last recession, when I had a bit of time on my hands, that it would impact law firms. We were no different than an Amazon or a day-to-day website that you would be looking at. I then saw that as the power to build something around our website so that we would attract clients towards us. Susan Burt last week told you about inbound marketing. That is the concept of bringing people to your website rather than having to go through the yellow pages as we had it, or as you had it, golden pages, I think. So I then started thinking, well, a bit of time on my hands. I started blogging, so I was the first solicitor to blog on conveyancing in 2008. And through a bit of luck and rather than judgment, certain of the areas that I blogged about and kept blogging about, when they became big issues, the researchers for the BBC radios, they look at a Google search, type it in, and if you come up on the first page like we do for those keywords, they just ring you up and say, would you like to come on, BBC One or Radio 4 and talk about it? And then that just gets you into that American sort of go-to expert, which is what we'd all like to be remembered as, perhaps. So the website as a hub, Susan spoke about that last week, so you know the concept. It should form the basis of everything you do. You're both online and offline, so if you can drive traffic through it, and if you're doing an offline event or you're doing a particular advert or everything else, it should be pushing it back to the back to your website. What I've got is a nice little website there, which is a HubSpot website. HubSpot is software that we use, I've been using for many years. They've got a huge office now in Dublin. I think they've got about 500 people working there. If you put your your firm website into that website grader, you get a nice little report. It'll tell you what SEO you might need to look at, how fast your site loads, and it'll give you an indication of where you can improve. So again, it's a free website, and it's quite a good little tool for the people that are competitive out there to help you through. So this is our homepage. Again, thank you for visiting. How can we help you today? So it's putting the emphasis on the client, the prospect. So everything we're doing is for them, really. So when they're ready, are you ready for a quote? There's some jargon busting content we've got. Do you want some guides? How can we help? And we've got one in the top right corner, which is if it's your first visit here. So you can click on there and we can give you more specific information that you may not have had from other websites. Concept of content marketing, I quite like the conversation that Bubba had with Forrest Gump on the bus when they were talking about shrimps. And I think if that's the way you look at content, effectively you can do everything with it. You won't do the accent, but you can do it for yourself in your head. And that's what content is. It's visual, it's a spoken word, it's video, it's blogging, it's the written word, everything that you can think of, and a mixture of all of those can give you an idea of how you can look at content as being not just a, a certain thing like blogging. It's so much more than that now. These are just a few examples to give you of how our website works. So chance for repair liability, which I don't think you haven't got over there, but that was a big issue for us a few years back. Good old Henry VIII, when he's sort of getting rid of the monasteries and upsetting, as I call it, the first Brexit. He gave everything to all the people that wanted it, getting their sticky hands on all the church lands. But what people didn't understand was that there was some liabilities which went with that, and those continued on, and still, although to a lesser extent, are applicable today. So we've got blogging. That's our jargon buster. What's the name of that legal thingy? This is our conveyancing guide. So I've turned it into a journey around the mortgage rocks and Treasure Island and Shiver Me Timbers. What will my conveyancer do next? That's Captain Hoot, who's our main guy, which comes from our logo, and then again it sort of expands that certain way. Again, using that. This is a slide share, how to get all your ducks in a row between exchange and completion. So slightly different in Ireland, but we have an exchange of contracts which makes everything legal and committed, and completion is the day that people move out and move in. So thinking around, what your clients might need in the different aspects of what you do. The how-to blog is still the most popular blog that people use, worldwide, not just in legal terms. So if you can start thinking about what your client needs and give it a little bit more, pizzazz and try and make it more acceptable and amenable, you can come up with something that will definitely help your people as well, your clients. So this is huge. This is just the second slide of our complaints procedure, which we all have to have. I never like using the word complaints. I always used to try and use difficulty or any, if we fall short of your expectations, but we're sort of told that we have to use the word complaint, otherwise people don't understand that they can complain. So it's just something that again takes it in a more visual way, and possibly a way that sets us apart. And again, you're looking at differentiators between you and your competitors, and talking points, so that people can say, well, I had this and that, and they did this quite well, and I enjoyed that. And then they start talking, and then they spread the word for you as well. Again, this was chance of repair liability. So had all the various yes and no's. So turned it into a game of snakes and ladders. So you start, is your property registered? Yes, no. And then you go, and then hopefully you get to the nice captain, well, not Captain Hoot, it's just Hoot. When you're home and dry, you don't have to worry about it. But if you're not quite careful enough, you could end up with a bit of a liability. But again, it's just turning something into a visual that makes it more accessible. That's the idea behind that. That was one of my earlier ebooks, everything you need to know about buying and selling a house in 28 bite-sized chunks. And then that's the book that came from that. So, I never started out with a book in mind. But if you do an ebook, which is probably 5 or 6 blogs, and you've got 20 blogs, 30 blogs, 40 blogs on your particular specialities, essentially you've got a book. It's probably not something you want to go to a publisher for because they're swamped, but as a marketing tool, you can self-publish, which is essentially that. and if you're giving it to your clients, and the feedback we had was, oh, it's great reading the book, and the book is just blogs but putting into a book form. So the calls to action on your website. So the communication now takes place when clients want. So, we are open 24/7, whether we like it or not, and clients want to look at our websites. They don't want advertising. They don't want phone calls. They don't want you initially, because they're doing their own social proof and research. So getting people to your website is just too small a goal. What you need to be doing is to produce a response. So you can do that by various means. Calls to action really just means, yeah, I'm interested, here's my email, I want something that you can give me, yeah, and by all means give me a call. So the concept behind it, this is a picture of some Chinese nets, as they're called, in Kerala, southern India. Essentially the fishermen drop those nets overnight. All the crustacea walk into the nets, and the next morning they lift the nets up, and there's all the prawns and all the lovely food to eat. And that's, again, a visual of how you should be looking at getting people. Your website is open, but you want a net to get them, to give them details so you can follow it up with a call. Another word you might use is sales, and whether we like it or not, we are in sales as well as everything else that we do professionally. Price transparency is something that I was banging on about in various conferences that I did over the past few years. It's just asking yourself these questions. So have you ever researched how much it costs online? And I think I'd be surprised if 100% of you didn't do something like that. When researching the information, and there's no information on cost, what emotion do you experience? That at the very least it's frustration. At the worst, they've got something to hide. Bloody lawyers, they're going to be too expensive. Why do they put it up there in the first place if I don't know what it's going to cost? And then the next question is simply, on your website, do you have any costing or price information? It doesn't have to be an exact amount, but you should be able to give people an indication of what it's likely to cost. And that can be in banding, it can be precise, it can be an estimate. It's up to you. But I think, the thing I'd say is, don't leave prospects hanging. Be a good helper, and if people are actually willing to give you an email and a telephone number in return for something that you're giving them, then that's the next stage to that prospect becoming a client. And that's what we're all about. This is our current call to our land. The call to action takes you to a landing page, and this, I think a couple of you out there, I know Flor and Michael from Sligo are using Perfect Portal, and a few others are as well. So essentially, this goes into what you're buying, what you're selling, and you put the details in. You'll get the quotes, and hopefully you'll get the email and telephone number. I say hopefully because we've been mandated now that we have to be transparent, and we're not able to insist on an email and a telephone number, which I just don't understand at all. But you can tweak that around. I'm looking at some other software at the moment, which I think does a little bit more than Perfect Portal, and that I'll tell you about in a little while. So the onboarding process. The banks, I think if we go back to 10, 15 years ago, the banks did everything for us. We had to go in, we asked them for a checkbook, we asked them for an account, we asked them for a balance. You had to physically go in most of the time or ring up. I think now the bank started the aspect of we have to do that ourselves. So I think we can start thinking about doing that for our clients as well. So, and certainly post-COVID, I think clients will expect things to happen. You know, if you ask people what Zoom was pre-COVID, you know, a few businesses might have known about it, but certainly not the general public. And now they use it all the time to, you know, communicate and keep in touch with people. So these are all the things that make that experience. So if you get the experience right at the beginning, so when the client is actually coming on board as one of your clients, that's the major touch point where a lot of their experience of using your firm will be what they remember. So self-serve AML face recognition software, that's what we're going over to now. Downloading and uploading of documentation. Again, if you know if anyone's interested, you know, drop me a line. I can tell them what they need to do. Front load the transaction, online payment, you know, online booking appointments. You can do that either through Google. You can do it on Google Local now. You can have Zoom meetings. You can do it through your software. This is what people are now going to expect. So I think a big part of this is going to be the revolution that clients demand, and our sort of slow, almost Dickensian ways of, yeah, we'll get to you when we next need to talk to you. I don't think clients are going to be willing to have that anymore, and the firms that can actually meet those new expectations are going to be the ones that are going to be the ones that are successful. So I see the next battleground, if you like, as customer service. That's what we're going to be judged on. People will want to know and want to see how we do things and how we treat them. And this, as the first part, again, online portal, secure access for clients to their documents. That is software that has been available in the last few years, but not very good. There is now a lot of that out there. So clients don't need to physically write something out. They don't need to come into the office. They can do that in their own time at home on their computers through a secure link. And that makes it, again, a much better experience for them. So I've whizzed through those just in case there's a few questions at the end. What I've done is I've put together a little aid memoir for you as well. There's some books there. That's the up and coming sessions. But I think
just keep scrolling down.
And yes, there we go. So I've put I think 33 or 34 things for you to at least think about that weren't appropriate to put in a half an hour a session. But I hope you get some benefit out of those. As I say, the main thing to realize that now post-COVID, I think client expectation has changed, and it's not going back to 2019. I think we have to up our game. We have to put the client front and center of everything we do. As that story that Jeff Bezos, the Amazon guy, whenever he had a meeting, there was always an empty chair at the table. And if anything was they weren't sure about, or there were a couple of opinions, all they did was point at the empty chair where the customer sat, and everything was through what the customer would want. So if we use the Amazon model as the holy grail, as it were, I think certainly on onboarding, the fewer touch points we have, but the better experience we can give is going to lead to a greater overall experience. And I know that, I'm generalizing because I understand, personal injury and all the rest of it isn't really something that you can say, well, that went really well. But for the majority of it, it just needs a slight recalibration. For some firms, a big recalibration for others. But unless we're prepared to put the client first in everything we do, it's not going to be a successful formula going forward. I think probably in Ireland you're a little bit more cocooned because you haven't got outside competition. We've been living with, as I say, these alternative business structures for the last 9 years or so, and venture capitalists have ploughed money into big firms. There's big conveyancing firms now that they're employing more computer programmers than they're employing lawyers. So we're forced into it. So for me, there's no option. But I think where you can do it over in Ireland is to set yourselves apart from your competition and differentiate yourselves in a modern client facing. I know all the soft skills that come with that. But if you can combine the two, then I think that's a winning formula. And certainly having a website, which is going to be the first port of call for most people coming on to finding out about you if they don't already know. I think it's something like over 90% now of anyone's journey of either buying a product or a service will start with a Google search or another search provider. So although it's much more than that, and word of mouth and recommendation is still very strong, people now have the ability to find out for themselves using their own degrees of social proof to find out whether or not you seem to be the firm that they would like to use. And certainly your biggest selling point, which is open 24/7, 365, is your website. And if you're using your website and you're also using productivity tools to actually make a better experience, the software I was talking about before is that the AML, the anti-money laundering, we all get people to do a selfie, and the selfie will actually then ask for another photo where you put your finger on your nose or your ear or your forehead so they know they're not dealing with a robot, and then uploading the photo from your passport or your driving license. The software uses facial recognition to compare the two, and that takes a matter of seconds, which from the client point of view gets over something that they have to do anyway. We're also able to use our conveyancing forms to be completed by them online and uploaded as well. So that then takes out a huge amount of work, not only for our staff, because they're not having to deal with people coming in and helping them through it, but it gives the client a better experience, and it also gives our staff more time to spend on the looking after the clients and the soft approach that you need to be able to make that experience a memorable one.
Paul,
that's about me, Justin.
That's great. Yeah, just one or two questions. Flo McCarthy sends his good wishes. Delighted to see you on the message. Michael Monaghan is saying that there's still opportunities to the local enterprise offices to apply for funding for updating your websites. Now, that comes with a slight caution. It's not for all local LEOs don't all give trading vouchers to solicitors firms, but there's still the opportunity if you can come up with something innovative to approach them. And a quick question then, Paul, as we end, and it's been hugely informative and illuminating from Susan, is when you're emailing out to your clients, do you email them all individually or collectively, is the question, to the client list? Do you send blanket emails or do you personalize them, I think is the question.
I think certainly the personalization is so much easier now with software. So if you're using an email program, it allows you so much more personalization. So you can, depending on the size of your list, obviously have more personalization, but you have to input that yourself. So if you're starting with, say, sending out an email to 100, 150 to 200, whatever it is, then it would be basic personalization. But it also, if you have the particular software, it allows you to be more precise. And obviously, if you can have that feeling that the email just hasn't gone to everyone, again, it depends on what you're doing. If they're in the sales cycle and they're thinking about using you, you can do much more. You can actually put a video, you can embed a video into an email now. So if you have your own little recorder, and it doesn't have to be too professional, but you could actually say, "Hi, Justin, great that you've contacted me. I'd just like to give you this bit of information before you read the email." So the level of personalization is greater than it has been. And again, it's not too expensive. It might take a little bit more time. So that certainly aids getting a prospect to become a client. If you're actually keeping in touch with clients and you've got a long list, then I think, just calling them by their first name is probably all you need for that particular enterprise. But you can mix and match. And, I think video is an underused medium. And if you can use that, if you're saying to clients, this is the next stage, and you embed a video in an email, just think of the power that is when you receive it, that someone's taken the time to actually explain it, and then it's also in writing as well. So again, these things take time, they take effort, but the cost of it shouldn't be a barrier to the smallest of firms. The only thing we can't get more of is time, unfortunately. But
and on that note, Paul, I'm afraid we're out of time, so many thanks for talking to us today. I think I certainly found it absolutely fascinating and a real insight into how it performs into the future. Just a quick shout out to Flora McCarthy, who's having a practical GDPR for solicitors tomorrow, and you can sign on at floraandmartin.ie. So I know that'll be a really useful practical GDPR for solicitors. So that's tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So we encourage people to attend that. Listen, Paul, you're a gentleman. I'll send out the video to everybody tomorrow with the marketing, or sorry, the takeaway 35 takeaway tips which are included in this presentation, and another 35 great ideas from Paul. So listen, Paul, you're a true gentleman. Thank you very much.
And if anyone wants to email me, paul@cluttoncox.co.uk, I'm happy to respond, as soon as I can, and I'd be delighted to help.
Yeah, great. And your contact details will be on the slides when we send them out. So, Paul, I wish we had more time. I hope you'll come on again and give us another insight. So, Slán, and enjoy the rain we've sent you. So,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.